Hello, this is Jo from Cranberry here, and today I'm going to do this video at a request of one of my good customers and members of the bead weaving club that I run, Lavinia. This one is for you. So she dropped these piles of beads off to me several months ago, I must admit, when she was attending a workshop in the shop, and she wanted to know what they were. Okay, so I'm sure it's a common theme with us beaders. We buy random beads, especially when we're starting off and we don't know exactly what we're buying. And we might be at a bead show or just some random event, or there's some deal somewhere that's too good to be true. We go, must have those, and we buy them. And then we get them home and we put them away, and then we sort of think, I don't know if these are good enough. You progress on, you know what you're dealing with a bit better, and then Lavinia was just like, I just want to know what they are before I use them. So we have got this lovely flower tin here, and we've actually got two more of them. There's this one here, and then there's a mixed one, which I'm not going to open because I just think it's quite similar to the other two. So some clues here. So see the branding on this, Maria George vintage. They're not vintage, may just be a sort of term used loosely, but Maria George was a well-known bead shop in the Melbourne CBD for many years, and she used to sell Miyuki beads. Okay, so that is our first clue. I have a strong suspicion that these may be Miyuki beads. So what I have done is I'm going to take a closer look at them. So I'm going to open it up carefully, or I already have, just to make sure. So what we have in here, reds, lots of reds. So this one here and this one here, these are size 11s, okay? You can tell just by looking at them. They're both silver lined red, and the camera's not picking up quite so easily, but this one is just a fraction of a shade darker than this one. Okay, so that's what I can tell so far. And if you're not sure, in fact, until I took the lid off of these, I thought these were size 11s as well, but they're not. So I'm doing the needle test, just pick two up, and there you can immediately see one's quite a bit bigger than the other. Okay, if you already have beads to compare them to, that is the best way to figure out what you have. So these two compartments look to be the same. I'm going to say they are size 8 in an opaque red. Now this one here is silver lined, and it is a size 8, and it's more of an orangey red. Yeah, it's a different shade again to these two. And then this one here is a transparent AB. Okay, you're never going to be able to see the finishes quite so easily on the camera as I can, but if I move it around a bit, I think that helps you see them a little better. Okay, so for me, it's experience knowing that this is a transparent red AB, but most of you, I would think, would be able to recognize these as opaque beads and these as silver lined. Okay, now the next step is, are these Miyuki? Okay, so I'm just going to move this out of the way. Done some pre-work here, and I'm going to zoom the camera in shortly to give you a closer look. But quickly, what we have, I've got lots of needles, and I've strung up 10 beads on each needle or pin. So, and we are going to compare the length. Let me just line these up, and then we will zoom in and I'll show you what we've got on the needle here. So this is the 11 test. Okay, so this one here is the one that we are trying to identify, this red silver lined. So I immediately pulled out some Miyuki gold silver lined. Now I've strung up 10 beads on these needles, and I was quite surprised that there was a slight height difference in these, but they still could be Miyuki. Okay, they look very nice and uniform, and so I still think they could be Miyuki. Now the next ones I've got here are also Miyuki, and these are opaque. They're actually opaque Duracoat. Now you can see they are quite similar in size. Maybe the silver lined is a fraction longer. Just a fraction. Okay. And then this other one we have is also a Miyuki metallic. Just line them up. And that one doesn't want to sit right next to it, does it? So I would say they are very close in size there. Very close. Of course, with general round seed beads, you are going to get the odd bead that is a bit bigger or smaller. So when you're picking up your 10 beads to try and measure, definitely just exclude those ones that look a bit bigger or smaller, because they're going to affect the results a little bit. So now these two bottom pins have Toho beads on them. So let's compare these. And that is quite a difference, yeah? It's at least one bead higher over 10 beads. Okay. And then this one here is also Toho. And I selected two different finishes because the finishes can definitely actually be different heights because of the different finishing processes. Okay, so there we are. The Tohos are definitely taller. So I'm going to say that this is a Miyuki, and that this gold one that I was comparing it to was probably just a slight anomaly. Okay, and I would say that these other two that I compared it to were quite a good match. So I'm going to say that those silver line beads are Miyuki. Okay, I will be right back and we will look at some of the size 8 beads. Okay, so now we are looking at the size 8 seed beads. Okay, so these are control samples, and these are from the flower packs. Okay, so what we have here, we have the transparent red AB, the silver lined orangey red, the opaque red, and then we have this color lined like lavender color. Okay, so even before I nudge these and line them up, you can see something interesting happening here, and I think this is the most interesting thing that is jumping out to me. Okay, because if I line these up a bit more carefully, you can see these two look a very similar height. This one, I don't want to lose them at the end. The opaque ones are slightly longer there. But then we add these in and they seem really quite big. Yeah? And if we put them next to even the silver lined ones, there's almost the height of 2 beads extra. Okay, if you nudge them up. So these purpley colour lined ones are quite a bit bigger. So we are going to compare to these control ones here. So this dark purple is a Miyuki, and it is a silver lined. And that is a bit bigger than the transparent red. Is it the same as the silver line? It's a bit bigger too. It's quite similar to the opaque. Quite similar. But it's still smaller than those chunky colour-lined lavender ones. So quite interesting. Now this one here is a Toho, and this is also a colour-lined purpley colour. Okay, so I thought I would get a Toho colour-lined to see if I could match it up against these. It's quite similar, but it's still bigger again. Okay. Which would be right for a Toho, sorry, just to clarify that. So the Toho beads are usually a bit taller, but this one, which you would think would be a Miyuki, being from Maria George pack, is almost as big as the Toho. So what do we conclude from that? I would say that these 3 red ones are almost certainly Miyuki, and this one is also very likely to be a Miyuki as well, because it's from Maria George, but I do have some reservations about it. I don't know that she ever imported Toho beads, so I cannot say for sure. But the one thing that this tells us is that sometimes when a pattern asks for Toho and when it asks for Miyuki, we have to ask why. Okay, it might be when someone asks for a Miyuki bead, it might be because they know it's smaller, and if it's like at a cinch-in point around a bezel or for shaping, you know that you can draw it in tighter if you're using a fractionally smaller bead. Okay, so if the precise size of the bead matters to you, say if you're doing some flat peyote, which to be honest I prefer to do it in delicate beads, but sometimes it does work fine with seed beads too. I would do this test before I started to make sure that they were a similar height regardless of the brand. Okay, so if I really wanted to use this colour-lined mauve one, I would dig through my stash and find a bead of a similar height. Obviously you need the right colour that you want to use with it for your personal taste, but it has to be the right height if you're looking for that preciseness that you need with certain stitches. Okay, now I do have one more bundle from Lavinia. Thanks, Lavinia. Let me just move these out of the way. Now, I don't know where this bundle come from, but it's a little bit of a mess. No judgment, Lavinia. Look at this. So, it's on Hanks, which immediately says to me these are check seed beads. They are quite short, so if I grab my needle and put some size 11s on it. These are size 11 Japanese, of course. They don't seem to be too much shorter. Honestly, when you have something like this, when you've got a few strands of this, a few strands of that, see, those look smaller again. Yeah, those are really quite tiny. I know we're zoomed right in here, but these are really quite fine. So when you've got a bundle of things like this that you don't know what they are, I would just keep them for little bits of embellishment. I would not go to the trouble of figuring out what they were. So these purple iris, really quite tiny, they would make a great picot around the edge of something. The colour actually isn't showing up so well on the screen, but these have really got a nice sparkle to them. Really pretty. Okay. There's all sorts in this, all sorts. So that's what I would use these for. I wouldn't take the time in trying to figure out what they all are, because they're clearly all different. Okay, so Lavinia, I will leave this one up to you to sort out, and I look forward to seeing a bit of embellishment use. There we are. Okay, I hope you found this video useful, and good luck playing with your beads. Thank you.